What up? We're about to get our show started. We're letting our followers get in there. We're going to follow on our phone so we can get the questions rolling. We're letting our followers we're live on Chris Anderson's. Look at this. Everybody's joining. Real Alex Shaw, Luke Farrell, Jay Bash. That goal. Hyatt Hustle, man. The crew is tuning in. Let's go.
Pardon, Johns. It's Hewitt Hustle.
Hewitt Hustle? What did I say? Hyatt?
Hyatt.
Yeah, same thing. Elder Tech, what's up? Mr. Rob.
From the basement.
What's up, Luke Farrell? Big fan of the show. Good to have you. Hyatt Hustle with the correction. I like to thank you, Chris. We're going to give a second for everybody to kind of join. Tyler Smouse. Breaking news. Should we release that news of what's happening this year?
Break it, baby.
Break the news. Aren't you playing on his team?
I'm playing with Tyler Smouse's team.
What
I was
a guy.
recruited.
One of the best specialty sports players in high school you'll ever see. A big fan. Welcome to the set, Chris. More people are coming in.
Appreciate it.
We'll get started in about just a minute. We're excited. We got our cheat sheets here. We got our quick stats if we got to check things out. We're looking for some feedback and some good stuff. Man, we got a decent amount of people.
Do you want to start it off just with some, fantasy knowledge?
Fantasy knowledge. All right. Hey, how about our stats? We've had a league since I was in the 7th grade. 2007 was our first season. This is now 2019. 12 years.
Yep.
We're from a 6-person league to a 10 to a 12. We've been 12 for, I think, probably 5 or 6 years at this point. I have 3 first-place finishes in those 12 years. How many you got, Chris?
None.
Okay. But top threes.
In my other league, I've won a few.
You dominate.
So we still got the expert opinions
here. Okay. Seth Ryan, Sean Prod, Mr. Farrell, back in the normal studio. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it too,
back.
Mr. Farrell.
If for those who don't know, we most of the time film here on location, set live in LA.
Yeah.
Occasionally we break it over to John's house
in Connecticut, right?
The ESPN
Bristol.
studio in Bristol. But we're back live in our studio.
We're excited.
So, how do you want to start this? You want to answer some questions?
All right. First question that pops up, we're gonna jump into, and then we're just gonna kind of feel it out from there. So, someone send in the first question. We'll get started. Who we got? Oh, have your questions ready, ladies and gentlemen. Have your questions ready.
We got our top 10s lined up. We got our cheat sheets lined up.
Here we go. Come on. Well, everybody's nervous right now. We're just waiting. 16 people, and no one wants to ask a question. Jacob Dugan.
Should we, how about this, John? I'll ask you a question.
All right.
We've had the video before. We posted it on our Facebook. We posted it on our Instagram. First pick this year. You said Melvin Gordon. We obviously got a lot going down with the holdout. So we're not going to fault you too much on that one.
Yeah.
Today, first pick, fantasy football draft. Who you going?
I'm going to go, if it's tomorrow or tonight, I'm going with Saquon Barkley.
Really?
I'm jumping to the Saquon ship.
Okay.
A little scared about the Eli Manning situation. No one really to throw to, but that's who I'm going. I'm going to stick to Saquon for now. But all right, now the questions are flowing in. I'm going to take Luke Farrell. How early do you spring on Zeke, Melvin Gordon, and Todd Gurley? What do you got?
That's interesting.
Pause real quick. We're going from a 12-team league, standard scoring. We're not PPR. We're not a 10-team league. Everything is off of our league, which is a 12-team league, standard scoring. So how early are you going to go with a Zeke or a Todd Gurley?
I think of those tier, I have Zeke right now at a 5. He's my 5th overall running back.
Okay.
I think he's still, there's some contract, but it's not as bad as all this Melvin Gordon stuff going on. So I think Zeke is a good top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the line there. They're going to run the ball. They got a solid offense this year. So I don't mind the Zeke pick early. The other guys like Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, those are a little bit questionable. And they say your first-round pick should be a surefire.
Yep.
He's the guy. He's going to week in, week out, give you points, give you that RB1 total or wide receiver 1 total, whoever you pick. So I think a guy like Todd Gurley, I think he falls to the second round. I think in a 12-team league,
wow.
I think he falls to the second round. I think this arthritis in his knee is a bigger deal than people think. And running backs, the wear and tear on their bodies. They just can't get it together like other positions. And Todd Gurley, it was weird last year, and we haven't been given really any good signs this year that he's improved. So I think he falls into the second round.
He's been sitting out a lot. They drafted another running back, never a good sign. Yeah. Obviously, he was way more hurt than they let on in the playoff run. I agree. I think Todd Gurley falls a little bit. I don't think he falls in our draft out of the first round, but he's probably going to be in the back half. Really like that question, Luke. Let's jump into another one. Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, Kamara. Who do I pick at number 1?
I mean, John, you've already said you're going Saquon. I've said it before. I've said it again. I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey. He's my guy this year. If I'm sitting at the top of the fantasy draft, I'm going Christian McCaffrey. He's got the wide receiver traits. He's obviously a proven running back. We've seen it. This year, this offense, Cam Newton, hopefully he can get his shoulder together. But Christian McCaffrey, the last 6 games of last season, turned it on. I expect nothing but production from here. He said it himself. He wants to have a 1,000-yard season. He wants to go 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving. And to me, that means a lot of fantasy points.
A lot of fantasy
So I'm going
points.
Christian McCaffrey.
Okay, and like I said early in the show, Saquon Barkley. A lot of talk coming back to this holdout situation. I just want to touch on it one more time. I agree with you, Chris. Melvin Gordon is not in a great situation. He wants to be traded. The Chargers have said, if you don't go to training camp, we're not going to negotiate with you. I can see him holding out in the season. Zeke, I don't think that happens. I think they get a deal done. Jerry Jones, still an emotional GM/owner. I think Zeke is a safe bet to draft where you think he's going to draft. Maybe not draft him 1, 2, or 3, but 4, 5, 6 I think is fair. Melvin, I would stay away from. If he's in there at the second round and you're in a standard league, I think you might take the chance. But like you said, first round, I wouldn't take the chance at all. Zeke and Antonio Brown, too risky. Where would you draft Antonio Brown?
You know, I think they're blowing up this Antonio Brown stuff, and when he's on the field, he produces. He's a machine. He's clearly wide receiver 1 out there in Oakland. He's got the foot problems. He's got the helmet problems. I think it's all this off-the-field diva stuff. But this guy produces, and when he's on the field, that's what matters. I expect him to be there week 1. I think he's a top 5 wide receiver. He's got the skills to be. Obviously, he's shown at Pittsburgh that he's the man. And I think as fantasy-wise, you should kind of overlook all this off-the-field stuff because when it comes down to game day, Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock, my man's playing and he's scoring.
He can play.
I mean, what do you think about Antonio Brown?
Antonio Brown, I don't love. I'm taking him easily in the second round, first pick of the second round, maybe even the back end of the first. Don't love the antics, but he is going to play. Breaking news, he had an approved helmet today in Oakland.
He did.
He's going to be fine. That's off-the-field stuff. I'm not too concerned about Antonio Brown, but I'm not in love with him. But too risky would not be what I said. I like this question from Smouse, Tyler Smouse. Again, Specialty Sports GOAT. Best running back after the top 3, which would be considered Kamara, McCaffrey, Barkley.
I've been taking the lead.
All right,
let's go for it, John. What do you think?
Here's my breakout. My breakout star is Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a PPR, which we're not. I love Joe Mixon. We finally have an offensive-minded coach in Cincinnati. They have an incredibly talented offense. A.J. Green might be out week 1, week 2, but they still have Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Tyler Eifert. They have weapons to kind of set up the run game incredibly quick. I think Joe Mixon breaks out here. If he's there at 4, 5, 6, you definitely at 6, you got to take him.
Yeah, I like that pick. For me, I'm very high on Nick Chubb this year. I think he's going to have a great season. The only reason I'm not putting him outside of that first tier is because when Kareem Hunt gets back, we're going to have no clue what the production is going to be going from Kareem Hunt to Nick Chubb. But my running back outside that top tier, I'm going with David Johnson.
Wow.
Cardinals.
Didn't he shaft you last year?
I got kind of the short end of the stick last year on David Johnson. They were an awful team. They were always coming from behind. But I'll tell you what, Cliff Kingsbury, he's an offensive guru, as they like to say. Kyler Murray, he's struggled so far in the preseason, but I think he's going to kick it up. And again, they say production. He's going to get 30 carries a game. He's going to get 5 receptions a game. He's going to be a focal point in that offense. And if he can stay healthy and if they can get him the ball, I really like David Johnson this year. So he's the guy that I kind of want to target outside of that top three.
Jay Besh, great Division III athlete right there. He asked, who is your best sleeper wide receiver? I'm going to take the lead on this.
Okay.
Sleeper wide receiver, some would consider sleeper has to be after the 8th, 9th round, whatever. So this might be a little bit early. Two guys I love. One I heard about from someone else. I'm going to give him the credit, but I really like this for this reason. D.D. Westbrook, Jaguars. Here's why.
We think alike.
John Filipino. Yeah, we don't rehearse at all.
That.
A pass-happy offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Nick Foles loves the slot receiver. High completions percentage to the slot receiver. DD's going to play in the slot. Jacksonville doesn't really have many offensive threats. I think he's going to get the opportunities and targets to make him just a better receiver. And then I don't like to get too much into the preseason, but Deebo Samuel, USC, I'll do the bias pick for you.
Thank you.
Looking really good for San Francisco.
Yes.
If he's there, late in the draft, I don't know about top 10 rounds, but 11, 12, I definitely think you take a chance on him, especially if your roster's pretty filled out at that point. Who do you like?
Again, I promise you I was going to say D.D. Westbrook. Obviously a stud at Oklahoma. Hasn't really had the quarterback that you want. And Jake, when we're talking about late round sleepers, you want to look at guys with good quarterbacks. And Jacksonville obviously has Nick Foles. He won a Super Bowl a couple years ago. He's obviously a stud. So I think D.D. Westbrook is going to have a great year. Another guy, and John has touched on him before, and we kind of have these same ideas. John has said before, and I agree, the number 2 wide receiver in Pittsburgh.
Anyone who's the number 2 receiver.
Is a beast. Yeah. Obviously, they have a quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. Juju's going to get a lot of the looks. But just like last year, I think they can have 2 receivers go for over 1,000 yards. So Dante Moncrief, he's my guy. Pittsburgh, late round sleeper. I think you look for him later in the draft.
Or if Washington is the second
Or
receiver.
If Washington. As of right now, I think they have Moncrief at 2. We'll see how it shakes out. But definitely the number 2 receiver for Pittsburgh. Look out for him because that's a formula that you want to have late in the draft.
White Chris 92 says, what do you think of the strategy of losing intentionally the first week or two to get a good waiver pick?
I can't stand that.
Yeah. We're live, so no editing this out. We really feel.
We have a certain someone in our league who does that. I don't know. I've never been the one to pass. You can't pass up wins. Yeah. I don't care how good the guy on the waiver is. I don't know how many games, but if you have a win, you can't pass up on wins in a short season like that where you're only playing 12, 13 games depending on playoffs. You got to take every win you can get. And unless for some reason you have some crazy injury early on where you have a lot of guys dropping left and right, I just don't like that strategy. But that is a great question.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. I think also the context of your league, if it's a family league, people that haven't really played much together, I think it's fair, some guys go and draft it. In the context of our league, most of us played together for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
So we kind of know each other. We kind of know the draft picks. Not many Kamaras kind of fall in the waiver. So we don't go away from that. And it was just announced in our fantasy league there is a punishment for last place of the regular season. They would have to perform their own NFL combine where they would have to go to their own doctor's appointment with their friends to watch their height, weigh in, get a real doctor to do all that with some combine interview questions and some drills. So definitely going to be an embarrassing thing for our last place finisher. So we're not giving up wins. I don't think it's worth it unless you're with a league that doesn't really know each other well or doesn't know football well.
Yeah. So we got another good question here from Tyler Smouse.
Smouse is getting hot.
He's lighting us up. He says, do you reach for Justin Tucker or wait for a random kicker until the last round? What's your opinion on kickers in the draft?
So I'm a big fan of no matter how many slots you have, if there's 9 starters, 10 starters, whatever your league has, I like to fill out that roster. Now, I'll get some backup running backs, some backup receivers before I jump into it. But as far as kicker, I want someone who's going to perform every day, and if a guy like Tucker is available and he's booting 40, 50-yarders consistently, I'm okay with getting him way before the last round. I'm all about filling out my roster because I know Tucker will score points every single week for me, and it's consistent. And at the same time, the trend of kickers right now is kind of going down, like inconsistent.
Yeah.
You never know what they're going to do. Double doink's a thing. I like filling out the roster for sure. I don't mind taking a kicker early. It's a half and half in our league. I feel like half of us do, half of us don't, but I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, and I'm kind of on the other half, and it seems like every year you go get a guy late in the draft. All right, here's your kicker. Here's my kicker for the year. 3 or 4 weeks in, you check the waiver wire, you check the total points, and like the top 2 kickers in points are like guys that aren't even on anyone's team.
Yeah.
So I think, for me at least, my strategy is just wait until the end, just pick a kicker who at the time is on top of the board, and then wait, just look at that waiver wire week 3, 4, 5, see which kicker is doing really well. And for me, at the end of the day, kicker, is it worth for me to take a late round guy? I'd rather take a flyer on a guy at a running back or wide receiver who has potentially a higher ceiling than a kicker who I know week in or week out who are going to give me solid points. So for me, I'd rather take the solid guy than go for the kicker early in the round and kind of waste this kind of potential pick.
Yeah.
So I just think the points are just out there for kickers to pick on the waiver wire. I don't think it's worth getting a kicker in the draft.
Agree to disagree?
Yeah.
3 first place finishes. What else we got? Get someone else in there.
Josh Benedict. 116. Interesting question
116. He just moved out of my house, so we're in bad speaking terms. He's getting married.
He says, "What's the art of the deal for getting a solid fantasy football trade done?"
Oh.
What are your tricks, John? What are your tricks to getting a trade done in fantasy?
Some of my best trades include trading Derek Carr for Marvin Jones against you, which took my fantasy team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is you got to build trust. You got to be right about things. So if you call things in the beginning and they start to happen, people understand that you know what you're talking about. And I think you gotta understand that you got to give people fair deals. If you just kind of try to blindside them, it might work once, but if you're in the same league for years and years and years, they're never going to trust you. So I think it's wooing. I don't mind buying a pizza or massaging. I mean, when fantasy's on the line, fantasy's on the line.
Yeah, I mean, for me, so last year I was able to get Kamara from a guy in our league, and I think it's all about timing. It's all about timing. Last year I was able to get Kamara right when Mark Ingram was coming back from his suspension. That first week that Mark Ingram came back, he went for 20-plus points, and I think Kamara had under 10. And that was the scare. That was the worry in drafting Kamara early was, okay, we saw year one, he was a beast. He put up points. But now with Mark Ingram back, what is his production going to be like?
Yeah.
So it's all about timing, and you got to find maybe injuries here or there. There's no specific formula. But if you can find that right timing where, you look at a guy like maybe even this year, maybe a guy like Nick Chubb and a guy like Kareem Hunt, later in the season when people are a little worried about Kareem Hunt going back, maybe that's the time to say, hey, I'll give you this, this, and this for a guy like Nick Chubb, who's most likely going to be a stud this year.
Yeah.
So I think it's all about the timing of when you're going to go out and trade.
And going off of timing, last thing, my rule of thumb is if a team that's usually really good starts to underperform and they're going into a bye week, I usually try to target their superstars because they're going to kind of try to fix things up, get their superstars involved. I remember the Saints started like 2-2 one year, went into a bye. I got Brandon Cooks, and then he took off the rest of the year. So I like this question from D. Besh. Out of the Ravens' 2 tight ends, Andrews or Hurst, who are you drafting and why?
I think for me, I think the safe pick is Andrews, obviously. He had a lot more production last year than Hurst. Hurst definitely struggled, but they say first-year tight ends never do well. Again, if you're looking at a guy like Noah Fant or T.J. Hawkinson this year, they say first-year tight ends, rookie tight ends tend to struggle. But I think if you're looking late in the round, again, you want to take a flyer late in the draft. I think Hayden Hurst is a great pick. Obviously, I'm a little biased towards the South Carolina boys, but this guy I've never seen in college. I've watched a lot of college football games. I've never seen a tight end take a jet sweep until I saw Hayden Hurst take a jet sweep 30, 40 yards and score a touchdown. This guy's an athlete. He's more than just a tight end. He used to pitch for the Yankees, so you know he can really do it all. This guy's a stud. I think if you want to go for a safe bet, you want to have a solid tight end, I think Mark Andrews is going to give production week in and week out. But if you're looking for a guy maybe late in the draft, Hayden Hurst has a lot of upside this year. He's a great athlete. I think that's a great pick.
I'm going to say just between the two, I'm going to take Mark Andrews over Hayden Hurst. A lot of reports in training camp is Mark Andrews keeps scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Great target. Lamar loves him. But as far as value goes and as far as where you can get people, nothing wrong with taking Mark Andrews and then Hayden Hurst later. There's going to be 2 tight end sets almost every play for the Ravens. Nothing wrong with that.
All right, we got another question here from Hewitt Hustle.
Hustle.
Ryan Hewitt. He says, how do you feel about Lamar as a consistent fantasy quarterback? He says there's a lot of talk about this throwing improvement, and it seems like the Ravens' offense might actually have some mojo this year. So, John, Lamar Jackson, is he a legit fantasy quarterback this year?
That's a really tough question. I'm going to say that he will definitely be drafted in our league. I will take a chance on him if he falls. He's not going to be my starting quarterback.
Yeah.
I just think flashbacks to RG3 tearing his ACL. Yeah. I'm not going to take that chance on Lamar Jackson to be my starting quarterback. But if he's there late and no one is taking him, I will gladly take him. I think the ceiling is very high for him, but I also think the floor can be really low for him. I think he's going to get to a hot start. If you draft him and he gets to a hot start, I think you trade him. Favorable schedule early, starting with Dolphins, Arizona Cardinals. He could get a lot of fantasy points,
Bengals.
And then I would try to dump him. I would try to dump him quick. I think he has a lot of potential. It's just hard to play that style for 16 games, and that's my concern. And there's too many quarterbacks. They're dime a dozen. I don't think I take the chance, but I think he does have an extremely high ceiling.
Yeah, and look, it's all about risk-reward, and I think his ceiling is unbelievably high. I mean, we saw a guy last year in Patrick Mahomes, unproven, with Texas Tech, just lit it up, but you really didn't know how that was going to translate to the NFL. Obviously, we saw what he went on to do last year to win the MVP. I don't know if it's all about risk reward. If you really think Lamar can give you points, and again, this league now is moving towards, at least fantasy wise, a running quarterback league. You look at guys like Deshaun Watson kind of run around.
Andrew Luck's even sneaky.
Andrew Luck,
he's sneaky with that.
Some Russell Wilson, a lot of these guys with legs, and his ceiling is just so unbelievably high because we know he's going to rush. We know he's going to run, and obviously rushing touchdowns are worth more than passing touchdowns. Lamar's definitely going to have a few this year. Obviously, the question is, can he be a consistent thrower? I think he can. I think the offense this year is going to be more molded around him, being easier throws, quicker screens, slants, that type of thing, to kind of get him in a groove and then occasionally take a shot. Obviously, we have Hollywood Brown, so those types of possibilities are there.
With his explosiveness, I really think that the best way to compare him is Colin Kaepernick in that 2011-2012 season when they went to the Super Bowl. They had the same offensive coordinator. They had a similar style receiving core with a burner and a kind of a strong guy in there. I like to compare him to that. It'll probably be consistent numbers with that. Kaepernick's a little bit more accurate with the throwing touchdowns, but Lamar will probably get a little bit more rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. Yeah. So I think if you're looking for a comparable, I would look to Kaepernick in that 2011-2012 season.
Yeah, so Ryan, to finally answer your question, get to it, I think if you really just kind of want to put all your chips on the table, I mean, what the heck? I think he could be a solid fantasy quarterback this year.
Not worth the risk, in my opinion. Okay. There's too many good quarterbacks to risk it as a starter.
Got it. All right, Sean Prod with the question.
Hot question.
Higher point total this year, Haskins or Foles?
I'm going to go Foles by default. I just think Foles is going to play more games, get more yards. I'm not in love with Haskins, but you are, so I think the fans want to hear from you.
I honestly, fantasy-wise, and this is going to be a cop-out, but I like Haskins better if he plays. And I think that's kind of the basis of the question, is Haskins going to play? I said it before, I think Haskins is going to come in either week 1, 2, or 3, or very early on. Keenum's just not the guy. Colt McCoy's obviously hurt. Alex Smith, who knows with him if he'll ever step on the football field again. But I'm going to take Haskins because he's more of an electric quarterback. I think Foles is going to be a solid fantasy quarterback. But nothing that's really going to light you up, nothing that's really going to get you going.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going to take Haskins on that one.
Yeah. I don't think Foles cracks my top. It does not crack my top 12, so I'm not taking him.
This is a great question here. I really like this question. Josh again in the comments.
Oh, Josh getting 2 questions. All right.
What do you think is a more likely scenario?
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes with a sophomore slump or Baker Mayfield stepping into that first tier of quarterbacks, having an amazing year? What do you think is more likely to happen?
What's more likely to happen? If we're going by definition of slump is just worse stats, worse throwing touchdowns, worse yards, Mahomes will not repeat what he did last year. I don't think he's going to slump in the sense that he's not going to be a top-tier quarterback. I just don't think he's going to throw 50 again.
Yeah.
So in that case, I still think Mahomes is going to be better than Baker. even with a slump, if you will. I'm going to take Mahomes. I think Baker performs well, but you also got to remember he's playing Baltimore's defense twice. That is the number 1 ranked defense from last year. You're talking about a Pittsburgh Steelers defense with a new middle linebacker. And with Shazier out and Shazier in, you saw how different that defense is. So having a good, fast middle linebacker, I think, is really going to help that defense. So you're talking about a tougher division and so many weapons, which helps him. But Nick Chubb's going to get. I think it's a better chance that Mahomes takes a step down, but still dominates. I like Baker. I like Baker. Not in love with Baker.
Yeah. And I think this will put sophomore in quotations, sophomore, because it's his 3rd year in the league. It's similar to like the Ben Simmons when he won Rookie of the Year, coming off of his 2nd year, really. But again, I kind of agree. I think the chances of Baker going into that next level are sort of unlikely. I think that top tier of quarterbacks is really hard to crack into. I think even with the guys like Jarvis and OBJ around him, I think it's going to be hard to do in comparison to Mahomes slumping. He's got Tyreek Hill still. He's got Travis Kelce still. Yeah. Solid guy in Damian Williams.
Yeah.
They just have a great offense. Andy Reid, great play caller. You know they're going to do well in the regular season. Now, thank God for the Chiefs that fantasy doesn't go into the playoffs because don't take any of their guys.
Yeah.
But no, I think there's a better shot of I'd say there's no way that Mahomes slumps. So I don't know. I just think there's no way. Yeah, he's not going to have that performance that he did last year, but I just don't see him slumping.
You have to have a Patriots running back start on your team all year. Who is it? I think this one's easy.
That's a great.
I think it's easy.
I mean, what, you think Sony Michel?
Sony Michel. He's a first-round pick.
Not first round.
No, he's a first-round pick of the New England Patriots. He's going to play. They're not just going to let that happen.
Yeah, but, with all this stuff with his knee and is he durable? And the question is, I still think this is a great question because we've seen time and time again, you live and die by Patriots running backs. Mm-hmm. It's similar how Duke lives and dies by the 3.
Mm-hmm.
You never know who's going to show up one day. If James Devlin's going to rush for 3 touchdowns and steal all your carries. You never know. So for me, I just like to stay away from Patriots running backs altogether. That's usually my go-to, and just stay away. Don't touch them. I wouldn't touch them with a 58.5-foot pole, that type of thing.
Wow.
Keep them far away. Keep them locked in the glove box. Just keep them away. But if I had to pick one guy, I'm going with Michel.
Yeah.
Just because he was great at Georgia. Great season last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the knee problems, but I don't know. I still think he's their number 1 back. But again, with the Patriots, you never know who's going to come out of the gate that week. So
we're going to go back to a Jake Beshner question. What round do you like targeting a QB? And on top of that, I'm going to add, who's your top 5 quarterbacks in that order?
What round? I think, again, I'm going to preface this with don't draft Mahomes this year. Just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are just going to be so in love with Mahomes. And we've talked about opportunity cost a few times on this show. What you're giving up to take Patrick Mahomes is just too high. The depth at quarterback is unbelievable. You can get a great guy in round 12 that you could have gotten in round 6, and the production doesn't drop off as much. But when you look at drafting a running back in round 6 versus a running back in round 12, the drop-off in production is huge.
Yeah. So
we're going to say this, and I'm sure John agrees, don't draft a quarterback too early. I think maybe...
But what's the round? He wants to know the round.
I think round 6 or 7.
Okay. And a 12-team league.
I think 12-team league, round 6 or 7. By then you'd have...
It's about 60, 72 picks in. 72 picks
You'd have either 5, you'd have either 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers, or 3 running backs, 2 wide receivers,
Throw
and
a
then
tight end in there.
Yeah. So I think by 6 or 7, once you have that base of the wide receiver, running back, tight end, I think that's when you go for a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think Mahomes is the number 1 quarterback. I probably won't draft one 6 or 7. Usually, a lot of times in fantasy drafts, quarterbacks kind of go on a run, running back kind of go on a run, that kind of thing. I'm going to let the run go most likely and just kind of try to get one back. But I want to hear your top 5 quarterbacks.
So my top 5 quarterbacks in this order.
Number
1, Mahomes, obviously. Deshaun Watson at 2.
Okay.
Matt Ryan at 3 had a
Okay.
great season last year.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to throw Baker Mayfield in there at 4. I think he's going to have a great season. Again, not in this top tier, but I think Baker, with all the weapons around him, I think it's going to be tough for him not to succeed.
Yeah.
And finally, 5th, I think this is a little higher than people would have him, but I really like Carson Wentz this year.
Yeah.
He's coming back as a full off season. Last year, he had the ACL problem. He didn't have the full off season to recover. He put up MVP numbers before he went down. Comes back this year, full off season to recover, full off season to get after it. They gave him Deshaun Jackson back, a little downfield threat. Zach Ertz, obviously his number 1 guy. I like Carson Wentz at that number 5 spot.
Okay. I love Carson if he stays healthy. Can't trust him staying healthy. I'm going to stay away in that top 5 for him. I like this. Another great one from Sean Prod. Without Gronk, is there a first/second round tight end this year?
I think there is. I think even with Gronk, even last year, I think Kelsey was the guy. Kelsey, we've seen him a lot in drafts going 15, 16, 17 overall, kind of fall into that early to mid-second round. I think Kelsey, again, we've talked about the drop-off in productions. I've honestly always been a big pro, however you want to say it. I've been pretty much for drafting a tight end early. I love drafting a tight end early. You got Ertz, Kelsey, and Kittle, the kind of top 3 guys.
Yeah.
And then after that, the production just drops off. It really does. And you look at those top 3 guys, they're going to be solid tight ends overall. And again, it's the same thing with running backs and wide receivers. A tight end from round 2 or 3 is a lot different than a tight end from round 8 or 9. So I think a guy like Kelsey can go in the second round, and then Ertz and Kittle kind of the late second to early third.
Yeah, again, I'm going to kind of repeat what Chris says. I think we're big on tiers and production. And so if you don't get Kelsey or Ertz or Kittle, I think it drops off and you wait. You wait till at least the 4th or 5th round. My next tier, I have O.J. Howard, not necessarily in this order. O.J. Howard, Eric Ebron, Evan Ingram, and Hunter Henry from the Chargers back from an ACL tear. And if you don't get that second tier, then I think you wait a long time. But I like Vance McDonald from Pittsburgh. Jesse James is gone. And Jarrett Cook from Oakland. I really like him too. But we're all about the tiers. So if you don't get Kelsey in that late first, early second, especially depending on what kind of league you are, I think you wait a little bit. Ertz and Kittle are worth a second round pick. But after that, once those guys are gone, I think you skip the 3rd round with tight end. Earliest is 4th, but I'm probably waiting until 5th to get to that next tier.
Yeah. So this is another great question, guys. Thank you. You guys are killing it. We're gonna wrap up here with the last couple questions. Thanks everyone for joining in. We got a few more questions. Chaussee with very interesting question here. Luke Chaussee, avid fan, avid listener, big fantasy guy. This one is kind of going into the bank, like really testing our knowledge. He's saying, do you got any handcuff players this year that you want to pick? And handcuff, we mean guys that are backups currently. So you look at a guy like Todd Gurley and Darrell Henderson. A lot of people are saying to Darrell Henderson to pick him because we don't know about Todd Gurley's knee. And I think that's a great question. And the guy that comes to mind for me, just said it, Darrell Henderson. Todd Gurley is so up in the air this year. We really don't know what's going to happen with him, with his knee. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? You look at a guy maybe kind of later in the double-digit round, 10, 11, 12, get a handcuff, kind of that backup running back. Like we saw last year with James Conner, a lot of people went ahead with the Le'Veon Bell situation, went ahead and got James Conner. Obviously a huge pick for them. So this is a great question. Definitely, if you haven't looked it up, look up handcuff guys, your top guys, because those are guys you can kind of take a late round flyer on, and really hit big on them. Yeah. So I really like Darrell Henderson this year on the Rams. I think
Darrell Henderson was my number 1 handcuff.
Yeah.
Number 2, I think this is obvious, but a Kareem Hunt. I just feel like you wouldn't pick up someone with baggage if you weren't going to use them.
Yeah.
And then the Derrick Henry kind of fiasco with James White is always interesting to watch. I think you put James White on there. Dalvin Cook's coming off of ACL tear, so you always look at that. And then you just monitor the situations with the holdouts. If they're still held out when your draft happens. I like Justin Jackson over Austin Eckler for the Chargers. I think Justin is the better back. He is the better 3-down back. Eckler's more of a receiving back. Justin Jackson will split carries with him, and I think he will get the goal line carries. Justin Jackson's had a really good camp. So Justin Jackson over Eckler when it comes to them. Good thing in a lot of leagues, Austin Eckler is going earlier, so you can get Justin Jackson later. But from our little sources, I'm hearing Justin Jackson would be the preferred. Right. But we don't know if Melvin Gordon's coming back or not.
Yeah.
Love that question.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. And again, thanks for everyone for tuning in. We really love doing this, so let us know if we should keep doing more of this type of stuff. Last question, we're going to kick it to Tyler Schmaus again. Great way to end it off. What's your strategy in picking a team name? Well, what kind of goes into the big factor? Are you a stick with the same team name kind of guy, or are you a switch it up every year team name?
Switch it up every year. Yep. You can't Google a name. You got to come up with your own creativity. And I think you look at your first, second round pick, guys you're not going to trade, and see if you can have some fancy names through that. I really like that. I won't know my team name until I draft my players.
You know, I think it's a must in fantasy leagues. See, you can't just stick with some boring name, your own team name, like Team Anderson. That's boring. It's a must when you draft your guys. Pick a name, think of a creative name, get your, wild side going. Drinking out of cups, Cooper Cup, that type of thing. You really have to, if you want to get truly into the mindset of fantasy football, you got to name your team after one of the players. It's almost a must in fantasy. If you don't, you're really not doing it right. That's my opinion. At least.
You like that opinion?
Yeah, that's me.
I like that. Well, thanks for tuning in. I feel like people didn't make us reveal as many secrets as I thought they would. A couple sleeper receivers. I'm excited about my running back list. I know our league's upset that more people didn't leak our questions, but feel free to comment on this video if we have another video come out. If you have more fantasy questions in the next couple weeks, we try to answer all the comments, so we'd love to give you our feedback. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.
All right, before we go,
he's coming back.
One last thing.
It's when you say bye and then you walk to the same car together. Really awkward. Here we go.
One last thing. We're just going to throw it out there. I've seen a few questions about it. Pick one guy, sleeper, late round. Who's your guy?
Sleeper, late round?
Late, 8+.
8+.
Who's the guy that nobody's really talking about?
I don't know if he'll fall. I don't know if he'll fall. It depends on the league. In a non-PPR, he might not. Or he might. Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay.
Yep.
Really like him, especially if he plays in the slot. And I like Tyler Boyd, Cincinnati Bengals. Had an incredibly quiet year last year where no one realized how many receiving yards he got.
Yeah. My kind of later round guy, Robbie Anderson from the Jets. I think Darnold's going to have a very good year this year. He's going to have a lot of pressure taken off of him with Le'Veon Bell coming in. Robbie Anderson, their number one wide receiver out there. He's got speed. He's shown it he can play. I think if you're looking late round guys, you want to splurge a little bit, I think he's my late round sleeper.
All right, I like it.
That's
so now I'm going to awkwardly say goodbye to you all again. Thanks for tuning in. Chris, you can go ahead and turn off that Instagram live over there. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Have a good night.
Let's see if I can take off this mic.